Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Ask Kati Anything. I'm your host, licensed marriage and family therapist, Kati Morton. Happy New Year. I hope you're doing well. In today's episode, we are going to talk about so many amazing things. First of all, we're talking about caring for someone that you love while feeling like you're falling apart yourself, living with regret and relief at the same time, trying to trust your instincts after years of self-betrayal, and wondering how you move forward when everything familiar is gone. Without further ado, let's jump into this first question. First question asks, how can I forgive people who have hurt me deeply? I love this question because it's really hard. Like, I don't want to sit here and pretend that it's like the easiest thing ever and, oh my God, just do these couple of steps. The truth about forgiveness, and something that has helped me kind of reframe it, is that forgiveness isn't saying that what they did is okay. Okay? We're not condoning their behavior. Forgiveness is what lets us off the hook. I'm going to say it again a little bit more succinctly because I think it's really important, and this is what really helped me. Forgiveness isn't condoning their behavior. It's letting yourself off the hook. And the reason that I say it that way is because in my brain, at least, I used to think that when I would forgive someone, it meant that I was saying that what they did was okay. I was like, no big deal. This is fine. But that's not really what forgiveness is. Forgiveness is, I'm going to let this go. I don't need to keep hurting myself or you about this thing that already happened. And we can't control other people, so we can't force them to apologize or to change or do differently. We can have boundaries around that if we think we need that. But in general, forgiveness is about that. I don't want to think about this anymore. I don't want to beat myself up or you up about it. So I'm going to let it go. That's what it really is. And so if someone has hurt you very deeply, there are a few pieces to what I believe is a healthy forgiveness cycle. And the first is acknowledging the hurt and feeling it, right? Allowing yourself to experience all that comes along with that, the hurt, the pain, the anger, the frustration, whatever. Acknowledging that. Then deciding that we either want that relationship or don't, and that can kind of change the trajectory of what we do next. Like, are we placing boundaries with them so that we can still engage, or are we, cutting them out of our life because it's just not a healthy relationship? We can do either of those. And then it's about the letting it go from our mind. Meaning every time you try to, because our brains love to do this, I don't know why, but they love to bring up these old, probably because it feels like it's a threat to us still, even though it's not active. So it brings up these old experiences, these painful experiences, and tries to wound us with them again. And when that happens, and we're like, I can't believe that he did this or she did this. I can't believe they said that. Oh my God. In that moment, we have to say, I forgive, I let it go. I don't need to be hurting myself with this anymore. And it took me a while. I'm going to be honest, it's not a quick thing. Forgiveness, I don't think, is a quick thing. I know other people are like, well, you just let it go. That doesn't help for me. That is really hard. I think it's more about how we talk to ourselves and that we kind of stop that thought process, because we all know we can get spun out, find ourselves even sweating and getting anxious and overwhelmed thinking about those past hurtful experiences because it was horrible. They hurt you deeply. I've had people in my life lie and cheat and say really horrible things and just be horrible people to me, damage me to the core. And I have to let that go because that only holds me back, right? Resentment, anger, those aren't helpful emotions when it comes to our growth. It's important to be able to experience them and use them for motivation, but we leave that behind. And so I know that's kind of a shitty answer, but that's how we forgive people. That's how we move forward. It's not actually, it doesn't have anything to do with them at this point. It's more about, what do we want to do? Do we want them in our lives or not? And then how do we talk to ourselves when we think of it again? Because we have to kind of stop that thought process in its tracks. We can't keep cycling through, and they did this and it was hurtful. It's almost like they hurt us the first time, and then we've taken that memory and continued to hurt ourselves with it as we move forward. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but that's really, I believe, how forgiveness actually works. And every time you find yourself rethinking it or going over it again, I want you to think, I don't need to keep hurting myself with this. I'm letting myself off the hook. This is not part of my life anymore. And thank God. Moving on to question number 2. This question says, hi, Kati. What I would like to know is, how do we keep ourselves going when we're so very tired? My mother has vascular dementia and is in a nursing home. I work third shift and I go and visit her every day after work, which leaves me with less than 2 hours of sleep each day. And I've been working 11 hours. Whew. I feel awful that she's in a nursing home, but it keeps her safe. Yes, of course, because dementia, they can wander out. It can be really dangerous. If I don't go to visit her every day, I'm afraid she'll forget me. And seeing how many of the residents get no visitors is just soul crushing. I am her only family member who can visit her, so I cannot just not go. She is the reason that I am seeing the true importance of mental health. The elderly are just literally thrown away, and God forbid we admit that we may need help ourselves, I totally know. I just want to say thank you for being such a beacon for me in this new journey. Oh, of course. Much love from a Buckeye State fan for life. Ooh, you're Ohioan? I'm not sure. Thank you. Thank you for you and Sean making this my year last week in Naperville. Oh yes, yay! Did you end up liking my spicy mango candies? I did. Your spicy mango candy canes were the bomb.com. Merry Christmas, happy calendar rollover day to you, Sean and Roxy. Amazing. And I did love those spicy mango candy canes. Okay, back on track. This is a great question. Okay, so when we are very tired, I want you to visit your mother, but you don't have to visit her every single day. I know you already hate my answer, but 2 hours of sleep a night is not sufficient. And if your mom knew that this is what you were doing to see her, she would tell you to rest. Now, I believe you should visit regularly. Like I would go home when I kind of knew my grandparents were getting up there in age and it was just a matter of time. I know that sounds horrible, but we kind of feel it. We can kind of sense it that I think they're getting older and I'm afraid they might pass away. And when Sean and I were up there visiting, I'd go and see my grandma as much as possible after my papa passed because I wanted that time. So I totally understand the need to spend that time, the need to see her. However, I encourage you to go every other day. Because of the fact that you work third shift and you're only getting 2 hours of sleep, that's not good for you. And talk about dementia. Now, I'm not a doctor, but you can read the research on sleep deprivation or not getting enough sleep and dementia/Alzheimer's. It increases our risk exponentially. And so I really want you to take care of your brain and body. Again, it's not that you can't see her. Let's just go every other day and let her know when you see her next. Be like, hey mom, I haven't been getting much sleep, so I'm going to come every other day. And if I can, I'll come, more frequently, but I really just have to catch up on my sleep a little bit. And I love you. And I'll be here in 2 days. And just let her know that you're going to just at least space it out a little bit so that you can get some sleep. Because 2 hours, that's just not enough. Or if you want to see her every day, let's go for a shorter visit, maybe like half hour, pop in, say hi, check on her. Maybe, if you bring her a treat or a coffee or something, and then go on your way so that you can get more sleep. However we need to do it, we're going to need to get more sleep because I don't have really any advice about how to keep yourself going when you're working on 2 hours of sleep. That's why you're feeling so shitty, because that's just not enough for our bodies. I don't know if I've said it on this podcast, probably, but maybe not. The average person needs at least 7.5 hours. Now, most of the studies that were done that said that we needed 8 hours of sleep were done on men. And they have found more recent research on women specifically that we need more sleep than men. The average woman needs about 9 hours. And so I just want to, and I know I need 9 hours. And so I'm bringing that up because as a woman and getting 2 hours of sleep, that's not enough. You're going to need more for your brain to do what it needs to do to clean itself, to log away memories. You're probably having a tough time recalling things because your brain doesn't have time to file it away. Sleep is incredibly vital to our health and mental health. And so I really want you to take care of yourself. This does not mean you should ignore your mom or not see her. That's not at all what I'm saying. We just have to find a way to make it work so that you can actually get some sleep. And that either every other day visits or shortening your visits overall. Either of those are great options because this reeks of I'm lighting myself on fire to keep someone else warm. And yes, it's your mom, and I love my mom too, but we can't harm ourselves for them right now. And I want you to still see her, but also take care of yourself. And we got to find that balance. Okay. And it was so nice to meet you in Naperville. Okay. Moving right along. Question number 3 it says suicide prevention and how to help or prevent it in the first place. What preventative measures can society take? Since my only sister died by suicide August 1st of 2013 at just the age of 25. This issue is very important to me. Thank you, Kati. Of course, and I'm so sorry that you lost someone to suicide. That's so difficult. Okay. Prevention. A couple of things. The first thing, as someone from the outside, I want you to know that you cannot, stop somebody who really wants to take their own life. You can't stop them. Okay. And it's not your job either. However, there is a big piece here of it's almost like that if you see something, say something. Like if someone's acting really hopeless, really helpless, they're not getting back to you, they're not showing up for the things that they normally would, you think they're isolating, you're worried about them, check on them. Anybody out there who's struggling with suicidal thoughts will tell you that being checked on, even if they're like, oh, I'm putting someone out, oh, I feel so bad, we actually need that. We need the reminder that people in our lives care, because our brain is telling us that nobody cares and that it'd be better off without us. And so it's a good practice that if we think someone's struggling, like even one of my best friends, Joanna, just got together recently. We were both not suicidal, but we both had rough years. And I was like, I've been worried about you. You haven't been responding to my texts. And she's like, you know me. And she's like, I haven't heard much from you either. And I'm like, you know me, and I'm like, we're isolating. She's like, let's not. Let's talk to each other. Because she's like, you're the only person that I really talk to about this, and like, you need to talk to people, because otherwise you just kind of pull back and hide away. And that makes it worse. And so check on your people. That's what society can do. If you notice that one person in your life is just not around as much and isn't responding to your texts or calls, or said they were going to meet up and then isn't, let's go check on them. Now, prevention, I love a suicide safety plan. If you're struggling with any suicidal thoughts, even if you feel like, Kati, I'd probably never do anything, I still want you to create one. I have a whole video about it, but essentially what a safety plan is like, what do I do when those urges or thoughts happen? We put in place some distraction techniques, whether that's journaling, whether that's calling a friend, whether that's going for a walk or playing with our dog or whatever. Put your things down. Somebody that will call, then we're supposed to wait a certain amount of time. It's kind of like a structure to get us to have things to do until that urge or those thoughts pass, because they do pass. It doesn't feel like they will, but they do. And so that's what a suicide safety plan is. And I encourage you to make one if you've ever had thoughts. And also, if we have it in our family, that means that we have depression in our family, which makes us more, I forget the percentage increase, but it makes it more common or more often that we could have those thoughts as well. And so if you find yourself having any thoughts of suicide, please reach out to a therapist, to a psychiatrist in your area. Let's get you some support, because with medication and therapy, we can get better. And I wish I had like better, ideas of what to do. I mean, there's 988. You can call the suicide hotline. There's also crisis text line, 741-741. There's a bunch of different resources that way. Those can be helpful, but I've heard from a lot of you that it's not really what you need at the moment. But those are there. And other than that, we just need to get that support in place. We need to check on the people that we love. Okay. Let's move on to question number 4. This question says, Kati, oh no, sorry, it doesn't even say Kati. It just says, being able to open up about my trauma without feeling shame. Great question / comment. The interesting thing about shame and trauma is that shame is something is wrong with me, right? Guilt is I've done something wrong, or embarrassment is I can't believe I did that. Shame is like I'm broken, like something inherently is wrong with me. And when we suffer from trauma, especially in childhood, and especially when it's repeated, like let's say we were physically, sexually, or emotionally abused like over and over and over throughout our childhood, we start to believe that we must have done something to cause it. I think it's a very common thought. I've heard from a lot of you that in your struggles with PTSD, you're like, well, I did this to myself. Like it's my fault. And that's where shame grows. That's where shame comes from, is that like, I'm ashamed of myself. Something is wrong with me. And so when we go to talk about our trauma, because it's tied to that feeling, that often brings up the shame thoughts. They're like, I'm going to tell them about this abuse and they're going to think that I brought it on to myself, that I did something, that I'm dirty, bad, disgusting because of this. And I cannot tell you, there is no way, and this, I know it's a shitty answer, but we're not going to be able to open up our trauma without feeling shame. We have to do it in spite of the shame. We have to open up anyways, because it's through that opening up and through those conversations, through that therapeutic process, that we overcome the shame, that we kind of get rid of it, throw it out because it doesn't belong here. But we can't do it before because it's so linked. They're like inextricably linked, because the shame grew as a result of the trauma. And so until we talk about the trauma, until we process it, until we move through it, we're going to feel that shame. And I know that's a shitty answer, but the only tip I could have that could potentially lower that feeling or help you better manage that experience would be to start practicing, talking more kindly to yourself, using bridge statements. So when you have a shame thought that's like, oh my God, I'm so disgusting, I'm so wrong, like something's just wrong with me, then you'd have to try to find something that's just a little less negative. Like, I'm open to the thought that maybe I'm not as gross as I think, or maybe Katie's right that, this thought of me being disgusting comes from my trauma. Not positive, but not negative, right? Not as negative. And we have to slowly move it in that direction. Other than that, the shame and trauma unfortunately go together. And it's a really horrible connection that our brain makes, but it does because it doesn't know what else to do, right? Especially, like I said, when we're young, we don't have all the information. We don't understand that like bad people exist and this person who's supposed to love me is actually harming me. We don't have that information. We don't even know that. We don't even know that to be true. We often think that maybe like I'm wrong. Like this feels bad, but they tell me it's good. So my like gut reaction must be off, which is why when we grow up, it can be hard for us to trust our gut. We can feel like it's not correct because forever it told us something was wrong and someone else told us it was right. Right. And so that it feels like, ugh, it's not correct. And so all of that to say that like that trauma leads to the shame. And so we're going to have to like reverse back out of that and process the trauma so that we can let go of the shame. And that's, in my experience, I'd love to know in the comments if you have a different one, but that's kind of the process through which we move through that. It's going to have to go in that order. I know it's shitty, but it does get better. I promise. Okay. So find a good therapist and let's work through it. Moving on to question number 5. This question says, hey, Katie, thank you for all that you do. Of course. It says you were actually my most listened to podcaster in my Wrapped on Spotify. I love it. I'm having a difficult time at the moment with regret. I quit my job in May because I felt very unfulfilled, bored, and that my potential wasn't being utilized. All important reasons for quitting your job. I knew I would get unemployment benefits, so I left without having secured another job. Fair. Now, in December, I'm still unemployed, and despite knowing in my bones that I made the right choice for me, I struggle with regret for not having a more solid backup plan. I feel a little angry at my past self for not having anticipated this situation. The weird thing is, I also enjoy this period of unemployment because I can rest, enjoy the company of my dog, a Swiss Shepherd, and live my life in peace. How can I appreciate this time more without feeling bullied by my brain for not having found a job yet? Thanks. I love this question, and I also enjoy your thought process because I'm that way too. So you quit your job for all the good reasons. You weren't feeling fulfilled, you were bored, you felt like your potential wasn't being utilized, and so you also knew you had unemployment benefits. You're like, I can figure it out. It sounds like you're still figuring it out, and that's okay. I know it was May, and you're like, oh my God, it's been, what would that be? Like, because that's the 5th, it'd be like more than 6 months, right? So we're going on 7 months, depending on when in May. It can feel difficult, but I want you to check your facts, okay? Because often it sounds like these are all like thoughts and feelings. They're not facts. Your facts are, I quit my job because it wasn't good for me. Yep. I'm still getting unemployment, so I'm taken care of. I actually am enjoying this time because I can rest, get to spend time with my doggy Doo, and I'm living my life in peace, which I haven't been able to do maybe ever. It's possible that, whatever you believe, like the universe or like spirituality, that whatever you believe in, allowed for this time to happen because you needed this break. You needed to rest. You needed to live your life in peace. You needed to enjoy the company of your dog and just be for a little bit. Sometimes life is funny like that, where it won't, like, I always joke that like life's got my back. I believe that whatever's out there is like looking out for me. And I think it's looking out for you too, because you needed this break. That's why it didn't allow you to get a job yet. And I believe that once you have, relaxed and done what you needed to do, it will then bring a job into your life. Sometimes I think we have these time frames that we believe things should happen because society tells us, right? Like even just with life, we're like, I'm at this age, so this is what I should be doing. And, I should be employed. I shouldn't have quit my job without having another job lined up. That's foolish. But sometimes we have our own timeline. Sometimes we need that break, and it happened on purpose because we can still pay our bills with our unemployment, for example. And so I really just want you to check your facts and say to yourself when those thoughts pop up that you're like, how come I haven't found a job yet? And be like, those are just thoughts. I don't have to entertain you. You can leave now. And you can even say it out loud if you're by yourself, because if you're home by yourself, then that's nice, right? But you can say that because so often we let these thoughts swirl in and we accept them as facts, even though they're not. And having a thought multiple times does not make it a fact. So we allow it to come in, we allow it to swirl around to tell us that we're such a loser and haven't done this and that and whatever. And it's not helpful. It only holds us back. It only makes us feel worse. And so when that starts, I want you to stop it. I want you to essentially tell it to leave. You're just a thought. You're not a fact. I don't want to think about you anymore. Bye-bye. You can leave. And so that's really how, or you can distract. I find distraction helps too when our brain kind of runs away with these thought patterns. That means that we can splash our face with cold water. We can do a full body shake. We can take our dog for a walk. We can watch our favorite movie. We can do anything, whatever you want. Play piano. Do you want to cook something? I don't know. Do anything. Distract. Pull your brain out of that very familiar bullying thought spiral. And that's another real way to kind of like shake us out of it. Okay. I'm actually really proud of you. You made a risky choice. You took a chance on yourself. And I firmly believe that like we should always take chances on ourselves. We have to believe in ourselves and things will come to us. And I think you're going to get a great job that it leaves you feeling fulfilled and like your potential is actually being utilized and you're being challenged and it's just amazing. And maybe we just needed this downtime to get us to a place where we could accept that job. So hang in there. Let's distract. Let's tell those thoughts to leave because they're just thoughts, and check your facts. Okay. Moving on to question number 6, it asks, how can you trust yourself? If I get triggered by something, should I act on it and set boundaries, or am I overreacting? Okay. Thank you to Hero Bread for sponsoring today's episode. One thing I've noticed lately, especially going into a new year, is how much more attention people are paying to fiber and protein. Not in a restrictive way, but in a how do I actually feel better and stay full kind of way. And honestly, one of the easiest swaps I've made is just changing my bread. That's where Hero Bread comes in. I use it for the things that I already eat, like bagel sandwiches, avocado toast, wraps, tacos, burger nights, and it makes hitting my goal feel way more doable. Hero Bread is low net carb. Some products have 0 grams net carbs per serving and 0 grams of sugar and are high in fiber with added protein. No big changes required. What really surprised me though was the taste and texture. It's soft, fluffy, and honestly doesn't feel like a health swap. I love it toasted with my eggs in the morning or as a grilled cheese with soup. It feels like real bread because it is real bread. Hero makes sliced bread, tortillas, bagels, buns, and they even do small batch drops like their super popular low net carb croissants and biscuits that people wait forever to get. If one of your goals this year is supporting your health without giving up foods you love, Hero Bread makes that easier. Right now, you can get 10% off when you go to hero.co and use code Kati at checkout. That's hero.co, code Kati. Moving on to question number 6, it asks, how can you trust yourself? If I get triggered by something, should I act on it and set boundaries, or am I overreacting? Okay. Trusting yourself is something that takes time to build, and I believe it comes out of confidence because you can kind of see how they're tied together. If I feel confident in who I am and what I want, then I'm going to trust myself to be able to make good decisions, right? However, if we have trauma in our past, if we have past experiences where we did trust ourselves and something bad happened, we can have this kind of difficult time reconnecting and feeling like we actually can lean into that trust. And so in this question, it says, if I get triggered by something, should I act on it and set boundaries, or am I overreacting? Triggers are triggers are triggers. There's no overreaction unless it involves someone else. Like we make it someone else's problem. And I'm not saying that to like judge anybody. I'm just saying that our triggers are our responsibility. And I know for whatever reason, our world has shifted where they're like, it needs to be trigger. You need to have trigger warnings. You need to be trigger friendly. You need to not say anything like that. I mean, we can do our best. Other people can try to do their best. Like I don't use number talk because I'm, eating disorder specialist. I know that that's just a messy thing to do. And I'm also a therapist, so it's a little bit different. But regular people aren't going to know your triggers. That's on you to know and to either communicate to them or also really have ways to manage it. And so in this question, it's kind of like, I know it's like multiple parts. So if you get triggered by something, I would encourage you to reflect on it, not act on it necessarily, unless the action is, I need to get out of here. If that's how you feel and that's how you kind of can regulate your nervous system, then let's get out of there. However, I think it'd be really helpful even now to look back on the last few times you were triggered and try to identify what the trigger is. You might already know, but furthermore, to figure out what is it stirring up in you? Meaning that, okay, so a trigger was this person like raised their voice to me, let's say, okay? Then I want you to consider, okay, that was what it was. They raised their voice. And what that really tells me is, or what I interpret is that I'm not safe, that person is angry, and anger means that I'm vulnerable, and it means that I'm going to get hurt because that's how my childhood was. And now I know I'm making a lot of assumptions. I don't know your experience, but that's what I'm wanting you to do is try to piece together this puzzle that your brain has so quickly pieced together. And because then I would assume, let's say this is the example, someone shouting or they raise their voice and it feels like shouting. We feel like we're not safe. We feel like they're going to harm us. And so our brain goes into fight, flight, freeze, and either wants us to like scream back at them, run away. Maybe we go into like dissociation, whatever it is. That would be like the acting on it. That'd be us like reacting out of the trigger. And it's important for us to understand that like step 1, 2, 3 through this like triggered response so that then we have like better tools to manage the trigger. Meaning that maybe that's breathing exercises. Maybe I excuse myself and I go to the bathroom and I like stomp my feet out. Maybe I splash cold water in my face. I talk to myself in the mirror and tell myself it's going to be okay. Maybe I call a good friend. I don't know, whatever it is that helps you feel grounded, helps you return back to like your baseline. We're going to need to do that. Now, the boundaries that you could set. Now, remember, boundaries are not telling other people what to do. I know that we like to think of that way. Like, don't talk to me that way. Don't raise your voice. That scares me. We can put in that request, but they don't have to honor that request. Boundaries are what you're going to do. So if someone does something that's triggering and you've tried to communicate with them and say like, hey, I find that really hard. It's like, I know it's my shit, but it's like my trauma and I cannot tolerate like being yelled at, even though you're like, I'm just excited and that's just how I talk. Could you just try not to? We can put in that request. They can do it or not. And then the boundary is us saying, and if it continues, I'll just have to step away. I can't hang out as much, or I'm going to have to leave, or whatever the thing is. That's the boundary. And so if someone is like sending you messages that are triggering or doing things in person, the boundary is you leaving, hanging up, not responding, etc. I find it's best for us to try to communicate those boundaries, especially if we want to continue those relationships. But you can set those to help protect yourself. Okay. And so I don't believe that we're ever overreacting, because overreactions are just indicative of like bigger things going on. Like this big reaction you're having shows you that your PTSD or whatever it is still very highly active, and that thing tapped into that was triggering, right? If we feel really hurt by something, that's not an overreaction. That's our experience. And we need to be curious, not judgmental, about why we feel so intensely about it. That makes sense what I'm saying? And so all of this to say that to answer your question completely is that you learn to trust yourself by being curious, not judgmental about your response to life, not judging it as an overreaction, not saying that, we're the one that's in trouble, this is our problem, by doing like our inner detective work, being curious about why we're triggered and what we could maybe do to protect ourselves more, Maybe it means more therapy. Maybe it means more grounding techniques. Maybe it means this person isn't safe for us because they won't listen. It keeps happening and we just don't really know how to interact. We've tried to set boundaries. They overstep them. So I'm going to have to pull back, right? So because I uphold that boundary, right? My action. That by doing that, by listening to ourselves and being curious, not judgmental, that's how we build that trust. Because then we're acting in alignment with who we are and how we feel and what's safe for us. And that slowly but surely builds trust with self, because then your brain and body know that, hey, I'm going to be okay because, I've got my own back. I can pull myself out of here. I can walk away. I can communicate. I can do hard things. I can survive this. Triggers are not traumas happening again. It just feels like it, right? We're slowly building that trust back that was probably robbed from us when we were younger, but give yourself time. All of these things that I was talking about, like the managing the triggers and understanding them and having other coping skills and setting boundaries, all of that leads to building more trust in self. And you can't have one without the other. And so I would start honestly by getting to know your triggers a little bit more and figuring out what boundaries maybe need to be set or communicated, and then starting to do that, starting to act in those ways so that then we can slowly build trust. Because the fact that you even think you're overreacting just shows me that we don't have that self-trust yet. And that's okay. A lot of us don't. We have to slowly build it. But you'll get there, okay? Moving on to question number 7. This question says, "Hi, Kati. I just graduated high school and I don't know how to move on. School is everything to me and not like most people. I loved school since you know what to expect and that there is a constant routine. I feel stuck and so sad and I don't know how to move on. The only thing I can think about is losing everything I have had and I feel sad and I just want to cry. How do I move on and start looking forward to the future?" There's a couple of pieces that I want to address here. First of all, I think routines in general can be very comforting to most of us, but especially for those of us who are on the spectrum. Now, I'm not your therapist and I'm not diagnosing you, but a lot of my patients and members of our community who have ASD or autism spectrum disorder, are autistic, feel like routines and schedules are really helpful and important, and change can feel extremely dysregulating. Now, I don't know if that's how you feel, but I just want to throw that out there because I think that it is an important piece that isn't always talked about, and that could be maybe why this is so dysregulating. So there's that. Then the second piece, I think, is that when school ends, a different routine starts. And yes, it's change and nobody likes change, but I do think that you could find a new routine, a new schedule with work, or if you go on to college. You said you graduated high school. I don't know if you're going to a trade school, community college, or going away to a 4-year college, or going into the workforce. And any of those options all come with their own routines. It's just a different one. And so I don't know if that would help you feel unstuck, as maybe to plan what our next move is. Like, do we try to get a job and we work, 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, or we have these certain shifts? We try to find a job that has like very strict or very set hours so that our shift doesn't move around. That could be maybe helpful. I think in general, the transition out of high school is a lot for any of us. Even when I went away to college, that transition was tough, and it is a definite structure shift, and we have to find our new routine. And so I guess my encouragement to answer your question, how do I move on and start looking forward to the future, is first to reflect back on high school and what made it feel so safe and secure. Now, I'm assuming that there was this certain routine that you felt like you followed. What was it? Tell me about it. When did it start? When did you get up? What are the things that you did? I know it's all around like a class schedule that was like that main chunk of your day. But what are the things that you did, like times that you got up, when you ate lunch, all of those things? Because those things sometimes we can still hold on to as we move forward. So let's reflect back and see what that routine looked like, and if we think there's a way to keep it. Like, for example, if you're going on to school, to more schooling, and your first class at high school started at 8 o'clock, then you can take an 8 a.m. class. I'm going to tell you those classes are rough when you're in college, but you can still do them. And so they exist. So maybe we could still keep that schedule. And maybe our last class ended at 3 p.m. So we can have like our last class start at 1 in college and we finish at 3 or whatever. I'm throwing out random ideas, but there are ways to keep a routine. And so I want you to be curious about what this routine was and why we liked it, and then see if there are ways that we can implement it going forward. If we're looking for a job and we're going to enter the workforce, and we could try to start at 8. and that we have lunch at this time, or, what's that structure, and how can we still bring some of those pieces of routine into our next thing? Because I think in general, we are creatures of habit. We like to have something that's consistent and that we can count on, even as I would admit that I am someone who, I don't mind routine, but I actually enjoy change a lot more, like not having a set routine. I mean, I work for myself, so I kind of like that it's something different every day. But routine can be very soothing, and it can be very calming if we feel dysregulated by the world. And so I think that being curious and pulling some of that along can help you move on, help you take that with you so that you still feel a little bit regulated. But I also would encourage you to figure out what it is about routine that feels so good to you. And if it's because we had like inconsistency in childhood, do we think that we're on the spectrum? Maybe we need to, get into therapy to find other ways to soothe our nervous system. I know that, there's different things that we can do, whether it's like journaling or shaking out or any stemming behavior. There can be things repetitive movements we can do to soothe our nervous system. There's a lot of different tools out there. I would love for you to figure out what might work for you. I do also, in the last little piece I want to address here, is that sometimes I think when we have change and our routine is thrown to the wayside and everything is like we're in a time of transition, there's a grieving period that people don't talk about. And that might be what you're experiencing. And if that really rings true and you're like, yes, that's what I meant, then I want you to allow yourself to, you said you're losing everything you had and you feel sad and you just want to cry. It's okay to be sad and want to cry. Leaving high school, if we're moving out from our home, if we're moving on, it can be exciting and thrilling, but also really hard. I remember my first year in college because I went away to school, right? So like all the way down to California, it took us like, I think we took 2 days of driving, and then we were there a day early to like sleep and catch our breath. It was my mom, me, and my aunt, and they drove in my dad's truck, and I drove in my car because I was going to bring my car. And that time, I felt like it'd be really emotional in that moment, like when they left me, and I like hugged them and kissed them goodbye. Okay, I'll see you guys later. And they're like, okay, we're going to drive back home. Bye. Going back up to Washington. I wasn't actually sad then, but that was the end of August. And by the time it came, like when Thanksgiving came around in November, I was so homesick. Even my birthday, I was like, I'm ready to go home. Like I just missed home. It was super hard. And I would cry about it. It was really hard. And even that first Christmas, I mean, I didn't get to go home for Thanksgiving because it was just a long weekend and it was too expensive. But I went home for Christmas, and I was so grateful to be home for 3 weeks. It felt so luxurious. But that slowly got less and less so. I still get homesick at the age of 42 for Washington State home, not where I am. And that's still, I call that home, which is weird. I don't know if that ever goes away. But I want you to know that it does get better. And I think part of it is the like consistency of home and the routines of home, and that you have your family like so close by you, and there's always stuff going on and people are taking care of you somewhat, at least for me. My mom was there, my dad was there. It was just nice to be close to all my people, and not having that felt a little scary. And I think it was like that new independence, and I hadn't quite grown into it yet, right? And so it felt a little foreign, and I felt a little uncomfortable. But then over time, it became normal, and it was okay. I think we often just feel like change and growth should be all exciting, all rainbows and things like that. But it's often hard, and it can be filled with grief. And so I hope that one of those kinds of things that I'm sharing is helpful to you, because it is hard and it can feel daunting and it can be sad. And you'll start looking forward to the future little by little. I'd love to say like, oh, do XYZ. And immediately you'll be like, yay, my future's so bright. You can look forward to like, hey, I want to be like, I have this job and I want to move up into a manager's role. I'm excited for that. And then maybe I'll be able to get my own apartment, right? We have all these different hopes and dreams. I encourage you to look forward to the things that you want. If you're going to get a certain degree, to get a certain job, you can look forward to that. There's all sorts of things that we can look into the future for and be excited about. And that also means that, it doesn't mean that we can't at the same time be sad about the fact that our life is changing and it feels like we're losing everything. All of our like teachers and routine and the people. Those two things can coexist. I think often, this is kind of, I guess my last little bit, is in therapy a lot, and maybe this is a full video, is like there is always a struggle when we have two conflicting feelings. And I don't mean conflicting to say that like they differ from one another completely, but it feels like, and the emphasis on feels, it feels like they can't coexist, meaning that I can be excited about the future and be sad about leaving something behind. Those two things don't feel like they should go together, but they can. I talk about this a lot when it comes to parents, and our parents could have done the best that they could, and they really tried hard. And there were things that I wish they'd done differently because it really hurt me. Those two things can coexist. Or I love my parents, but I'm also upset about some of the stuff they did, and I wish they didn't. Those things can coexist even though it doesn't feel like they should. And I think in your case, it might be that you feel like you have to either be looking forward to the future or being sad about leaving high school. But you can actually do both. Both of those things can happen. I think I was that way. I loved where I grew up. And I mean, I was ready to leave, let's be honest. It's a very small town and it felt suffocatingly small by the time that I left, but I was grateful for it. And even as I moved away, the nostalgia grew and I seemed to like forget the things that I didn't like and be like, but I love it here and I wish I could go back, right? It was so comfortable. It was what I was used to. And so any change is going to be uncomfortable and it's going to feel scary and it's going to be a little, when you're leaving something behind, it's going to be sad. But I think that, taking that all into consideration can hopefully help you move into looking forward to the future. Okay. Hang in there. Moving on to question number 8. It says, Kati, the biggest mistakes I've ever made were because I forced a yes when I meant no. Ooh, I feel that. Thank you to OneSkin for sponsoring this podcast. Can we talk about New Year's resolutions for a second? I used to think January meant completely reinventing yourself. Now, for me, it's more about doing an honest audit of what's actually working and doubling down on that. And one thing that's been working for me is taking my skin health seriously with OneSkin. I've been using their OS1 face lotion consistently, and what I love is that it's not just about how my skin looks right now, but how I'm supporting it long term. With OneSkin, I know I'm addressing skin health at the cellular level, not just masking things on the surface. At the core of OneSkin is their patented OS1 peptide, which is the first ingredient proven to target senescent cells, one of the root causes of wrinkles, crepiness, and loss of elasticity. And these results are backed by multiple clinical studies. Plus, OneSkin is safe for sensitive skin, dermatologist tested, and free from over 1,500 irritating ingredients, which honestly matters a lot to me. People constantly say their skin looks smoother, firmer, and healthier over time, and with over 10,000 five-star reviews, that makes a lot of sense. Born from over 10 years of longevity research, OneSkin's OS1 peptide is proven to target the cells that cause visible signs of aging, helping you unlock your healthiest skin now and as you age. And for a limited time, OneSkin is making it even easier to stay consistent with up to 30% off your first 3 subscription orders when you use code Kati at oneskin.co/Kati. That's up to 30% off with code Kati. After you purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them that we sent you. Moving on to question number 8. It says, Kati, the biggest mistakes I've ever made were because I forced a yes when I meant no. Ooh, I feel that. Hoping for acceptance and love, even when I knew the situation was bad for me and others. When the users got what they wanted from me, I was left to pick up the pieces. Now I'm fiercely guarded, introverted, angry, sad, and stuck because I'm so tired of the wreckage after each self-betrayal. I've done enough studying and therapy to understand the why. Trauma response, blah, blah, blah. But labeling it doesn't change me on the inside. How do I trust anyone ever again? Most of all, myself. Thank you. I thought this was a great question, and I picked it, frankly, because I feel it, and I think a lot of us do too. We forced a yes when we meant no. We people-pleased our way into self-abandonment. And the only way that sometimes we know, and I even talk about this in my new book, Why Do I Keep Doing This? It's available now. I talk a lot about how I always felt that I could only be angry or like assert boundaries when I was hurt. And that like something bad had to be done to me in order for that to like be permitted. And I don't know where this belief comes from. I don't even share it in the book because I still don't really have the answer. I don't know why I think or believe that way. But I believe for some reason that I can only assert myself, protect myself, or, say no, do all that, show anger directly when someone's really hurt me, when something bad has happened. Otherwise, it doesn't feel like it's warranted. It feels wrong in some way. And I think much to what you've realized is like, that means that other people came first and that you always were second on your list or the bottom of the list, even if you were on the list. And so the problem with what happened here is that instead of you realizing that you could place boundaries and you could change the dynamics of your relationships by doing so, you went all or nothing. We went black and white. And so you went from, I say yes all the time, even when I mean no. And I do everything you want. And I give. Instead of doing that, now I'm fiercely guarded, introverted. I'm angry. I'm sad. I'm lonely probably, and you feel stuck. And so it's almost like we have to learn how to live in the gray. And that's uncomfortable. I just want you to know that that's really uncomfortable because the others feel so definitive, and it makes decisions easier because it feels like it's always a no then, right? We went from always a yes to always a no, when in life, it just depends on the situation. It depends on the energy we have and what we want to give. What are they asking of us, right? And so my encouragement for you is to start journaling. When you find yourself, I don't even know what the situations are, but I'm just going to throw some out because I'm not sure if you're interacting with anybody because you said you're fiercely guarded. But when you find yourself wanting to throw up your walls, okay, I'm guarded. I'm not letting you know how I feel. I'm not letting you in. I'm not telling you anything about me. Like when you feel that happening, instead of reacting to it or responding in this very guarded, introverted, angry way, can we, and maybe after the fact we have to do this, but if we can, in the moment, can we hear ourselves at all? Do we know what we want or not? Do you? That's where journaling is really powerful because we can reflect back on the last time we found ourselves, feisty, fiercely guarded, acting in those ways. The last time we acted that way, what was it that our brain and body wanted? Does it want to protect us? Okay, that's fine. We can want to protect ourselves. Very normal. What were we protecting ourselves from? What were we afraid was going to happen? Well, I was afraid they were going to take advantage of me. Okay. How could they do that without your permission? Well, I don't know. Sometimes I can get manipulated or I can do things I don't want to. Okay, so did we want to do that thing? Let's consider that. Because your answer might be like, I don't know. I don't even know if I wanted to do that. Let's think about it a little bit. Is it something that we would enjoy? Is it something that we used to like doing? We don't know if we do, but we used to. Maybe it's worth exploring. Do we feel pressured to do it and it actually feels icky? Well, then it's a no, right? Does it feel like it goes against who we are or the values we hold? Then it's a no. Often when we swing in this all nothing black white type of thought process, we don't take any time to check in with ourselves because it's either always a yes or always a no. It's never in alignment with how I feel and what I truly want or need. And so we have to give ourselves the time and space to figure out what our brain and body are telling us and be curious, not judgmental about their process. Because for a little while here, even as you journal and try to reflect, your brain and body are going to be like, nope, shut it down. I don't want to do it. I'm angry. I'm sad. I've been taken advantage of. Fuck that. I don't want to do it. Blah. It's like spines out all the time. I remember I lived in that phase for a while. In my early 20s, I would say, I went through this I call it rage, my rage period. My dad was also super sick. So I was like, I don't have any resilience for any of you fuckers. I don't want to deal with any of this. And I was just angry and lashing out at everybody. And that was self-betrayal too. It felt like I was so empowered. But as I look back on it and even read through my journals and my emails between a couple of friends, I'm like, wow, I was so not myself. It was just protection, 24/7 protection. And while we don't need to light ourselves on fire to keep someone warm and be completely vulnerable and giving everything unguarded, we also don't want to go to the complete other extreme. Extremes are never where we want to live. We want to live in the gray. And so I want you to try to at least consider what it might look like to be in the gray. What could you imagine that experience to be in situations with relationships and friends and people? And as maybe you meet new people, maybe we want to rebuild our community. What would that look like? How would that feel? And I want you to keep journaling, because the one thing I will tell you, I know I talk about journaling all the time, but the one thing I would tell you is that it's really helpful because it allows us to take stock of what we're thinking and feeling and slow down the process so that we're not just walking through life kind of like on autopilot, just letting things happen, making decisions willy-nilly. We're actually checking in. We're touching base. We're trying to figure out, like, what do we want? And it takes some time to I don't know what the word I'm looking for, but it's almost like reconnect. It's like we're rebuilding like this rope of connection between that, like between our true self and our actions, because it's been disconnected. It used to be disconnected because we said yes to everything and we volunteered ourselves to everyone all the time and gave till we had nothing left. And now we're doing the opposite. And neither of those is actual true connection with self. And so I want you to slow down. I want you to try to listen to yourself about what you like and what you don't like. I talk about this in my book, but I've also talked about it in videos before that like it might be helpful for you to take yourself on a date. And I know that sounds kind of weird, but maybe we need to get to know ourselves again. Maybe we don't know what we like and don't like, what we want and don't want. And so we'll have to try things out. Like, have you always thought that you didn't, like this certain movie? Maybe we try watching it again. Or maybe we try a different type of food. Maybe we go out by ourselves and try roller skating. Or I'm just saying, try different things. Take yourselves on dates. See what you like and don't like. It gives you some quiet time without your phone looking at it all the time. We don't need to distract, to tap in and to start listening to yourself again. Because I can tell you, as someone who has kind of gone through this phase myself, time, in and out, it's tough. I feel best when I am quiet with myself, when I'm able to discern what it is that I actually like or don't like, or what I'm unsure of. And then how does that make me feel? It makes me feel a little bit scared. Okay, interesting, right? I think it's because I feel a little bit vulnerable because I don't have a response. I like having a response. And it gives me more information about myself so I can get to know me. I can figure out what she wants and doesn't want. And again, it's not easy. It's not overnight, but we're rebuilding a relationship with self, because like you said, you're so tired of the wreckage after each self-betrayal. You know that you're abandoning yourself for other people. You've recognized, you've done all this therapy and studying, but intellectualizing it doesn't help us feel it. And so I want you to stop thinking about it and I want you to start feeling it. I want you to tap into like what that experience is like, what comes up for you. And that will slowly rebuild the trust in the relationship with self. And it sometimes takes us time. Also, we're changing and growing all the time. I feel like I'm always getting to know myself again, because me today is not me at 20, right? I mean, thank God. But also like I'm always growing and changing, especially because I've had like a really rough few years here. I've definitely changed a lot and grown a lot, and then some good and some bad. And it's important for me to acknowledge that and to distinguish, where do I want to go and where am I acting in alignment with what I'm wanting for the future. You can see where I'm going with this, I think. But give yourself a minute. You will learn to trust again. But like any relationship, especially one with ourselves, it takes time and consistency. So it sounds like saying yes all the time or saying no all the time is not who you are. Those are two extremes. You're somewhere in the middle in that gray, because the one left you feeling used and abused and the other has left you feeling angry, sad, and stuck. So neither is good, right? Both are versions of self-betrayal. And so we have to figure out where that middle ground is, where you feel like you are yourself authentically. And we need to live in that for as much of our time as we can, knowing that it'll shift and change depending on the day and our energy. But that's why journaling, that's why slowing it down can really help us reconnect. Final question, question number 9 asks, "Hi, Kati, I'm about to turn 29 and I'm not really sure how to feel about it. I'm not very close with my friends anymore, and I've never been in a long-term relationship other than short-term relationships with people in my friend group, which now makes it difficult for me to be around them. I've known many of my friends for over 10 years, so it's been really hard to go out and build new relationships with other people." I feel you on that. My question is, what should I do if I'm struggling with depression and loneliness and want to be around my friends, but I also find being around them mentally draining and difficult? Thank you so much for what you do. Your show has really helped me this year. Oh, I'm so glad. I'm so glad. I love this question. It feels like you've come to a crossroads where you've kind of grown out of your friendships. And I don't say that lightly. I know it's difficult. I mean, I've grown out of different friendships of mine over the years. And it's not that one of you's right and one of you's wrong. It's more just like you're growing in different directions. And the fact that you find spending time with them mentally draining and difficult tells me those are not fulfilling relationships. Those actually aren't relationships that we want to spend a lot of time with. I know that's hard to hear maybe, but hang with me. So you've had these friends you've known them for over 10 years. Okay, wonderful. We're going to have to try to meet new people, and that will help with that loneliness, definitely, because you'll feel more connected. Because here's one thing I want you to know is that real friendships, real relationships, ones that are healthy, happy, and worth putting our time and energy into, leave you feeling energized, connected, seen, heard, and understood. It's like there's just something so wonderful about those friendships. And I can tell you, most of my friends that I'm close to now, I think I met, around that age, like around 25, maybe to 30. And so I think I went through maybe what you're going through, where you just start to feel like those friendships aren't for you anymore. And whenever I say stuff like this, I want everybody to know that when friendships end, it's never one person's wrong and one person's right. That's not really the point. The point is that we've just grown into different people. We're different now. And that's okay, right? We're all growing and changing and making different choices, right? Sometimes my friends would make choices I don't agree with, but it's not my life. And if it doesn't affect me, whatever. Other times I'd be like, that seems really sketchy and I don't want to be around that. And that's my choice, right? And so again, no one's right, no one's wrong. But in your case, it sounds like these friendships, even though you've known them for a long time, aren't really fulfilling. They aren't healthy maybe or helpful. It is just draining and not enjoyable. And so my advice is we have to start meeting new people. And the best advice I have for you is to try to say yes to more things. Like, when I first moved to Austin, I said yes to all sorts of events. I've talked about this before, but like my neighbors would have different get-togethers and I would always go. It didn't matter what it was. Wine tasting night, sure. Galentine's Day, I'm there. Goddess circle yoga, weird thing we're burning Palo Santo, sure. Sign me up. I did everything. I went to all these things, taking 2-step lessons because somebody was having a birthday. I don't know the person whose birthday it was. I'll go. Yep. Sign me up. I'm doing it. And I went to everything. I said yes to everything because I didn't know anybody. And that's how we meet people, right? And in my case, it didn't turn into like a ton of these really close, amazing friends, but I do have one good friend. And sometimes that's enough just to keep us going, right? And so I want to encourage you to try to say yes to more things. Even if you're like me, it's discouraging sometimes. You're like, I did not like that event. And those people seemed a little fake or they're not my type of people. That's okay. We keep trying. There are things that are going to be going on in your area. Let's go to them. Is there a trivia night at one of your local pubs that you like? Go to it. Is there, are people at your church, if you attend, like looking for volunteers for some kind of kids play or something? Sign up for that. Just try something. They need people to volunteer to raise money for the school and you're going to do a car wash. Go do that. I know these things are maybe not enjoyable and you're like, Katie, those sound like horrible things, but we have to find a way to meet people. And I find it's best when it's like, there's no pressure for you to be friends. It's just a chance to hang out in a group towards a shared goal and see if there's any connection there. If after the car wash that we volunteered at, they're like, hey, we're going to grab burgers. Do you want to go? Say yes. That's another opportunity to sit down and chat. And you might have things in common with these people. We have to just say yes to more things because these friends that you've known for over 10 years, maybe were great for those 10 years, but I'd say in the last few, it hasn't been the best. It's starting to be draining and difficult. And it sounds like maybe you've outgrown them or you've just grown in different directions. And that's okay too. It also might be the reason that like the fact that you've been in those like short-term relationships with some of them, that's also probably changed the dynamics. And that might be why you haven't had long-term relationships because even in that friend group, those people weren't actually your people. Does that make sense? It's almost like we've never maybe really been as connected to them as we thought. And I find that that piece that we're not actually as connected as we thought to be kind of a hard pill to swallow. I had to do, like, for a couple of my relationships, I had to admit that to myself too, that like it actually wasn't good and it wasn't actually as close as I thought. And I don't know if they really knew me as well as I thought they did. You know, there can be a lot of these realizations. But I encourage you to take your time with it. Nobody says you can't hang out with these people anymore, but it sounds like it's not helpful. It's draining and difficult, but we don't have to like cut them off. We don't have to do that, but we need to make space for others. And so let's try some new things. Let's say yes to some random volunteer situations. If you're like, Kati, I don't know if there's anything going on in my area. Are there any like soup kitchens you can volunteer on a Saturday? There's people that go to those things all the time. And I used to do those all the time. And there's great people that are there. So that's one opportunity. Like I said, churches, schools, they're always looking for volunteers. You can go into your local, elementary school or high school and be like, hey, if you're ever looking for volunteers to help out with like the carnival or whatever they do, I'm happy to help. I'm just looking for more ways to be connected to community, or in your church, anything like that. Go ask. And I know it's uncomfortable, but that tiny little bit of uncomfort on the phone or in person means that then you're opened up to a whole nother group of people. And those people might be your people. Then it might be fulfilling and it won't be so draining. But we just have to start saying yes to more. I find it's really easy, and I'll speak personally, when I'm feeling depressed and lonely, it's really easy for me to isolate because going out takes energy and talking to people takes energy. And all the time when I make plans, even for new potential friendships, I'm always like, do I really want to go? And a little voice inside me is like, even if you don't, you need to. And I want you to say that to yourself too. Even if you don't want to go, you need to. Because we aren't going to make new friends. We aren't going to have good relationships that are fulfilling and leave us feeling just energized if we don't. And so we have to try to meet new people. These old people were helpful at a time and existed in our life for a reason, but that reason might be coming to an end. And there might be a few of those friends in your friend group that you keep in touch with because it happens to be a little bit healthier, than the others. I don't know, no pressure. But I really want you to just start saying yes to more, doing more. And that's how we slowly pull ourselves out. That's how we meet new friends. I think it was Brené Brown. Gotta love Brené Brown, right? Who doesn't love her? She had said something on a podcast. This is probably a few years ago now, but it was essentially that we can't be so afraid of saying no, because when we say no to things that don't serve us, it leaves room for big yeses of things that we want and that we really want to have in our life. And I think that that's what we're doing here is we're saying no to these friendships that are draining and difficult so that we can say yes to building new ones. And I know those new ones are fresh and they don't know anything about us and we don't have 10 years of experience with each other, but I would also see that as a blessing. That like, hey, if I'm growing and changing, these new relationships can be a reflection of that. I can be the better friend that I wanted to be. I can be the better version of myself that I've been working on because they're not going to keep trying to pull me back and remind me that I used to be like this. They're going to be moving forward with me. And that's kind of freeing too. And so let's say no to things that don't serve us so we can say yes to the things that do. Okay? Have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your week. Happy New Year. Do all your homework, and I'll see you next time.